Hello there, and thank you for tuning into The Nimble Urban Survivor, a show that if Queen Elizabeth heard it herself, she'd probably shut it down after 5 minutes, or she'd probably really like it. So, hi guys. Welcome to The Nimble Urban Survivor. I'm your host, Nicatelli. Hope you're having a good month, good day, good year, good whatever. The date today is December 8th, 2020, and things are getting a little crazy out there. If you didn't know, the state of California, that's where I live, has gone on shutdown. I think this is like the 10th time we've gone on shutdown, and luckily I was able to get a haircut before everything kind of closed down again. So hopefully, I guess we're going to be shut down for another 3 weeks, but you can tell that the stress is really starting to get to people. A lot of people are out of work, looking for work, and crime has gone up. Murders have gone up. My downstairs neighbor, I think, has turned into a complete sociopath. He's threatened to sue me I think 20 times because my son likes to, play in our house, because that's what 2-year-olds do. If you didn't know that, that's what they do. They like to play with toys and have a good time and sing songs. I think COVID stress has gotten to him also, or maybe he's just a dick. Could be either or, but hopefully he feels better. But yeah, it's crazy. And, now they got this vaccine that's supposed to come out, and everybody's like up in arms about the vaccine because, they're like, how did they create that vaccine so quickly compared to, curing the common cold or the flu or cancer? But they made this vaccine so quickly. Will it be ready? And I saw one person, because I love to read like the conspiracy theories about the vaccine, and one conspiracy theory is that it's going to make all the women sterile, and then another conspiracy theory is it's going to turn everybody into like zombies. So pretty much all of the conspiracy theories is somebody just went through and looked at the like horror sci-fi zombie genre on Netflix, and those are all the conspiracies with the vaccine. So I don't know what's going to happen with that vaccine when people start getting it injected. It kind of might be like that movie I Am Legend. I might be the last person, in L.A. I'm not sure. Could be kind of nice for a while. I know at first that sounds kind of bad. We're like, I'm going to be the last person alive in the city. But then isn't there like a small part of you who's kind of like, might not be so bad for the few, first couple of years. I mean, if you really think about it, in the movie, Will Smith, he's supposed to be this brilliant scientist. I really feel like he was taking his time making the cure to the virus. Just saying. Looks like he was kind of enjoying having Manhattan all to himself. Granted, you had the zombies at night. But still, if you had the run of like Times Square and Manhattan all to yourself, I think you could have a little bit of fun with that before you got to curing the virus. But I digress, because today's topic was submitted. Because obviously I have a lot of my fans who, they lost their job, they got their job back, and then they lost their job, and they work in the restaurant industry as servers, which is, that is tough, man. I feel like the two toughest things is working in hospitality, just dealing with Americans because, they're such douchebags. And then number two is being like a substitute teacher for a middle school. Those are the two toughest jobs in the world. I'm sorry, firemen and police. I said that, but trust me, I have to agree. I've done both, and they are a nightmare. But, they lost their jobs, and then they got their jobs back. And now they just lost their jobs again. And the city of California is only going to give them like $800. They're like, here you go, guys. I know we just took your job away from you again, but here's $800. Which, if you didn't know, $800 in probably like Iowa, that's probably like 5 months' rent. In California, oh man, I'm not gonna lie, that I'm getting choked up talking about it. No, that $800 will probably last you like 5 minutes here, which is sad. So today's topic, because it kind of brought up a good issue, is that all these people are getting fired. And somebody told me, they're like, well, a lot of these people probably deserve to get fired, so it's a good time, like in 2008 when they fired all those people, because of the economy. I don't know if I agree with that. But it is true that to get someone fired is very difficult today. And that's going to be today's topic, is we're going to talk about how to survive passive-aggressive workplace incompetence, okay? Because the American workplace, has turned into an interesting phenomenon. I think the American workplace is more of like a middle school cafeteria, and I worked in it. I worked in a finance office in Chicago for many, many years, and it was miserable. I felt like I was dealing with children, but it was just amazing to me the passive aggressiveness that goes on when it comes to like workplace incompetence. And when I mean workplace incompetence, I mean reasons why people should get fired. And companies now are so scared to fire people because of lawsuits. Back in the day, like, early 1900s, like World War I, World War II, like when someone got fired, they took it like an adult and were just like, I'm sorry it didn't work out. That's all right. I'll go get another job to take care of my family because I'm not a little whiner. But nowadays you have these stories of people who, do outrageous things at the office. They came in and maybe they like bathed in the bathroom and got naked. And then they get fired. And then they turn around and sue the company. They're like, well, I have every right to bathe my body using sink water in the toilet, and it's ridiculous. But in reality, the sad part is I guess they kind of have somewhat of a case. Because, I guess the bathroom is like a free place where you can go and do whatever the hell you want. But, to me, I think it should just be like if someone messes up or does something, you should fire them and get rid of them. Because that's one of the best things in the world is when you fire somebody from the office who's incompetent. Because then it kind of unites everyone. It's kind of like, remember in the movie Independence Day where they, beat the aliens and it like united the planet. And then in Independence Day 2, like the planet Earth was like united. Same thing, kind of same analogy there. When you fire like the crazy person or the incompetent person from the office, everybody's happy. Everybody gets to talk about it. It's a great morale boost, and incompetent people, or lazy people or mean people or people who just have a bad attitude, they ruin it for everybody. And I read about that. That statistically is true that, even if your top salesman is making $1 billion a year, but they're making everybody else feel miserable, they say that you should still fire that person. And I think I kind of agree with that. So, workplace incompetence. But today, going back to what I was talking about, nobody ever wants to point the finger at workplace incompetence. And I'll give you an example. I was working in an office, finance office, and I don't know why, because, my degree is in acting and directing, but these people thought that I could handle big number finance, which I did. And I remember I had to train some kid, right? He was some young guy like out of college, and I'm not gonna lie, he was kind of an idiot. And we use our email server, the work email, to send like routing numbers and things that like hackers would love to get their hands on, because then they can like transfer money into their own like offshore bank accounts. Okay, so this kid's been working at the bank with me probably about a week, and I guess the email wasn't working, and he had to like send a wire transfer routing number. And if you don't know, like a routing number is like that's like the key to your bank account. Like when you give a routing number, that's like people can easily take money or put money into your bank account. Don't ever give away your routing number, ever. So he gets a routing number and he's supposed to email it to this other department. So the work email, is not working. And he could have just been smart and like picked up the phone and called them and just been like, here's the number. That's what the smart person would do, logically. But instead, he uses his Gmail to which is, I would assume, is probably one of the most hackable emails on the planet. He uses his own personal Gmail account to, send the routing number, and literally just exposed like a client's account to like the whole universe of like the dark web and the web. I mean, what a fucking moron. Okay. And the best is, in my reality, if I was the boss, I would have fired him on the spot. I would have instantly fired him. Because if I was the client, I found out that you're like giving away my account number via Gmail, I'd be really, really fucking pissed. Okay. But instead of firing them, this is how stupid my office was in Chicago. They just called a meeting and they sat us all in the room, and we were all to blame. And it was funny because it was obviously this kid who'd done it, and it had his Gmail attached to it. But instead of just being like, dude, you're fired, you messed up, get out, They literally sat us down in a meeting room and we're like, hey, everyone, just a reminder when sending, sensitive information such as social securities or routing numbers, stuff that could ruin people's lives with identity theft. Please don't use your personal Gmail or email. And then, in reality, it's so funny because everybody in the meeting knows that it was this young, stupid kid who did this. But nobody has the balls to say it. And I was the person who would say it. And I was always deemed, the asshole. Because you're the asshole, I guess, now in the American office place if, like, you point to someone and you call them out on their shit. But the kid got to stay. He should have been fired, but he got to stay. But that's the American office place now. Is you literally can fuck up like a cajillion times before, they'll reprimand you like 10 times. They'll have like 20,000 meetings about not to do it. And then maybe they'll fire you. And that's the sad part is now you have to do like something super drastic to get fired. And the reason is because you got all these people who can't accept that they're idiots. For example, this kid was a fucking moron and sent a routing number. But I guess he could turn around, get a lawyer and just be like, oh, I was emotionally deterred and I didn't know what to do. And and then I don't know, they could spin it in so many different ways and probably get money out of the company. But that's the problem now is like you literally have to like bring a gun to the office to get fired. And even then, I don't even know if they would fire the guy. He could probably turn around and sue him. He's like, well, I was so stressed out. I had to bring a gun to the office because they're just stressing me out. And it's emotional distress. And I've had to talk to a doctor. And actually, I'm suing you. And that's how fucked up, the American workplace is. And then they would just have a big meeting with everybody. And they'd just be like, okay, everyone, remember, oh my God, please don't bring rifles to work. Don't shoot your coworkers. That's not nice. And you know what? Let's have everyone just write a letter to their future self saying about how they're not going to bring a rifle to work and shoot anyone. Okay? And then we can all go back to work. And that's the American office place. And I did it for 7 years, man. And it was miserable. But nobody will point the finger or blame anyone. And I used to blame people. I would call you out. And I think you should call people out for messing up. And people will get really angry at me. And I was a big jerk. So I think they were really, really happy, to see me go when I quit. It really makes me respect, like, I don't know what it's like, but I've heard like in Tokyo, they like yell at you and scream at you. And I think they even like cane you or something. I don't know if that's true, but I saw a movie one time and they were doing that about like poor employees or poor managers. So they really know how to like, discipline their people, which is good. So let's talk about, obviously the topic today, how to survive passive aggressive workplace incompetence. What happens if we don't survive it? Okay. Well, number one, morale in the office goes down because everybody hates working with the office douchebag. So everybody's going to get pissed. Everybody's going to quit, and then your company's going to go under, and then the economy's going to go down. Okay. Also, if you keep, the idiot in the workplace and they keep messing everything up, then, that's another way. Like your company will go under because the work is shoddy and there'll be lawsuits and bankruptcy. And then, that hurts the economy too. So that's what you're looking at. And that's kind of what you see now, a lot of companies, I feel like, sloppy work because they let the incompetent people work. So pretty much in reality, we're just looking at a complete global economy, economic disaster. And then it's going to be like the movie Mad Max. And everybody's going to be out of work. And it's not because there's no companies. It's just because people don't want to work at these companies because there's office douchebags. And then all of the office douchebags are going to run the companies. They're going to run them into the ground. And, we're looking at pretty much the equivalent of World War XI. That's right. I skipped over all those other ones, went straight to 11, because that's how dangerous it is. Okay? So how do we survive that? So here's the thing. Obviously, people don't want to fire people. People don't like conflict. They don't like direct conflict. Kind of like that movie Up in the Air. Like they hire people to come in and fire people, which I think is kind of a bitch move. Is that, pardon my language there, but, if you're going to fire somebody from your company, you sit them down, you look them straight in the eye, and you tell them why. You don't hire someone because I think that's degrading. So here's the thing. Step one is you have to ask yourself, do you want to fire someone? And I would assume 90% of the time it's going to be no, and that's okay. That's okay. I understand because you don't want the conflict and the stress, and then you don't want to, go home and drink a thing of whiskey like in a 1936 noir detective movie. Okay, so how do we solve that though? How do we skip over all of that, but at the same time fire someone to boost the morale of the office? Because if office morale is up, productivity is up, profit is up, the economy is up. How do we do that? Think about that for a second. You need, and this is a technical medical business term, you need a fall guy. Okay? And step two is hire a professional actor to be the fall guy. And a fall guy, by definition, is just a guy you hire, or a woman, guy or a woman, I don't know, I'm not being sexist here. I guess a person, let's say person, my apologies, that you would hire to take all of the blame, be the screw up, and then, you would just fire them. Okay. And to be honest, stuff like this happens. If you didn't know, like a lot of Asian companies, that are owned and run by, Asian countries and things like that, they'll just go out and hire a doofus white guy to be their so-and-so vice president, because then they can show the Americans hey, see, look, we hired an American too, so you should do business with us, which is fine. I would take that job where I literally just have to make an appearance and be the token white guy of the office. I have no shame, but you need a fall guy. So step two, find a fall guy, find an actor, pay them. Step three, give them a makeover. Whatever your company is, finance, business, marketing, whatever, McDonald's, make them look the part. You're going to have to go out and hire a stylist, hire a dialect coach if you want them to sound like they're from Boston, New York, or maybe, up in Minnesota, or maybe, I don't know what voice that is. Or maybe going to Chicago. You want to get a dialect coach because obviously, if you have a business in Chicago, you want them to sound like that, vice versa, St. Louis, whatever. Okay. Then that brings me on to step three. So once they look the part with the suit and the hair or whatever, you want to go out and hire them. Probably get one of those LinkedIn HR coaches, and they help people with their resumes and how to interview and do all that stuff. Because you got to remember, the fall guy, you can't just do that thing where, the next day you just bring in a new employee. You have to legitimize it. You have to create the illusion that your fall guy actually is a legitimate employee, but don't overdo it. Don't make them go to Harvard or Yale or create that. I would just say go to a dumber school, like Notre Dame. And because you don't want them to come off as too smart, because then people will be like, well, why'd you just fire the resident Harvard guy? But then when you're like, well, why'd you fire the resident Notre Dame guy? You can, that makes sense because, those people just never shut the fuck up about Notre Dame and their football team. So then step four is you're going to want to do a fake interview, obviously, because you want the other employees to kind of, be won over by him. And I feel like companies do this a lot now, because I know when I worked at the bank and I got to the point of where I was interviewing people, you would have to interview with 5 people for a stupid entry level job, a job that you're making maybe $30 grand a year. It's literally, you probably make more at McDonald's, but you'd have to interview 6 different people, and you'd only probably actually directly work with one of them. But it was so dumb. But you're going to have to do that with the interviews. Is you're going to have this person interview, probably 3 or 4 other people on the team, because you want the team to like them from the get-go. Okay? Now, that brings me on, I think we're on to step 4, which is the interview. And you want to give them a secret earpiece and talk them through it. You might want to go out and hire somebody from Forbes magazine, because Forbes magazine always has that great information on how to score an interview. Okay. And you're going to have to have a coach and get a van and have somebody sit out front and talk them through it. That's fine. So that's the interview process. That's easy. I think that happens a lot anyways. Probably find somebody off Craigslist. Okay. Then you go to step 5, you hire them. All right. And then we move on to step 6. Now, step 6 is an important step because, first of all, you want to tell your actor, your fall guy, that, start out being the resident nice guy, right? And then, kind of be a dick, a little bit of a dick, and just be that employee, but still kind of do the job. But here's the thing is, remember, he can't do the job because he's just an actor. So if you're trying to make him work on a merger or an acquisition, he's not going to be able to do that. You're actually going to have to probably go out and hire like a real employee to secretly do all the work for him in a back closet somewhere and hide them, get an intern or a kid straight out of Harvard, whatever. All right. Because remember, this guy's sole job is to be fired. And that's when something comes up. Because that's what brings me to step 7. Because here's the thing. Let's remember this, guys. Don't just fire him to boost morale. You need to fire him because something bad happened in the office. And here's the thing. You don't know when something bad is going to happen in the office. Okay, it could be tomorrow, it could be next week. It might be 7 years. So you could be stuck with this guy for a long time. So just be prepared for that. So you might be in it for the long haul. And so step 7 could take a couple of days a week, could take, 3 decades. I don't know. He might end up retiring there for all I know. But it's worth it because then that brings me to step 8. Something happens. And that's when something happens, like maybe a client is pissed off or something got messed up. Or like, for example, let's go back to that dumb kid I was talking about who emailed that routing number. Let's use that for the example. So, the dumb kid emails the routing number using his Gmail. Everybody's pissed off. You're pissed off. The other employees are pissed off because it makes the whole team look bad. Your higher-ups are pissed off at you. Everybody's mad, right? But they all know in the back of their mind that they can't fire anybody because they're petrified of, getting sued. So this brings me to step 8. Fire them. And you want to do it in front of everybody. And you want to make it be like a really big, powerful, I would say like Emmy award-winning Oscar moment scene. And you're going to want to have this all scripted out. So you're probably going to have to go out there and hire like a feature film writer. Don't hire like a TV or a web, guy writer. Hire like a real feature film television writer to write a scene that you and your fall guy should be rehearsing in your apartment at least twice a week just to keep it fresh. Okay. And it's going to be something where you're going to tell him that you think he's incompetent and he's holding back the team and throw a few lines in there from like a Tom Hanks movie or something like that. That always works. And just tell him that, he's not welcomed here anymore. Okay. Now, this is going to be a really dramatic moment because, normally you wouldn't do things like this in your office, right? Okay. Because, obviously that opens up like a whole Pandora's box of issues. So this is where your fall guy really comes in to play. All right. Because what you're going to do is have him just accept it. And your fall guy's lines are going to be somewhere along the line of like, yes, I admit I messed up. I can't fit in here. I'm not as smart as you guys. I apologize and I'll leave peacefully. And then just have the fall guy collect his things and leave. And that's great. You just fired someone. Now, the other way, because I guess this would be like step A, point B, is to do it in front of a client. Because when you do it in front of a client, I mean, you've guaranteed business. Because if clients like anything, they love it when you instantly fire people. I don't know what it is about you guys, but this is the same thing for me. Like people, I feel like get off on getting people fired, right? Like if you're at a restaurant and the waiter messes up, and you're like, you should fire that person, and the manager just instantly fires them right in front of you for you. There's a lot of people who like I think that's terrible. But there's a lot of people who would like get off on that and probably go home and, pleasure themselves at the thought of that. So that's a big thing to do too with your fall guy in step 8. Point B is fire him in front of a client. So going back to this routing number example, if the client comes in and is like, you gave away my routing number, who's the idiot, and they're probably going to say a lot of, colorful curse words who did this. You can point them in the direction and be like, this guy did, aka your fall guy. And then the fall guy will just be like, yes, I accept all responsibility, because nobody accepts any responsibility in the American office place anymore. And the client will instantly, feed off this and be like, you should fire this man. And then you, as a boss, will be like, you're right. And then you just turn to your fall guy and you're like, you're fired. Get out. And your client will be like so blown away that you pretty much just locked in their business for life. And I didn't even think about that until I was just like talking about that now, is that, when you have a fall guy, number one, it boosts office morale. It also kind of makes you look like a badass and a real leader. And also like in front of the client, like how does the client like not stop doing business with you. Because if your client is like, well, I don't want to do business with your company anymore because of this, you could easily be like, dude, I fired a guy from Notre Dame for you. So I think you can tell that we are dedicated to keeping you happy. And no client can argue with that. I know if I was a client and somebody fired an employee because they messed up my stuff, you might have my business for life. Even though you messed it all up, you fired someone for me. And that really got to me. It's kind of like a romantic comedy kind of thing. And that's it. That's the steps. Just a simple, 8-step process. Is create a fall guy, groom him for the part, let him work there. Something bad goes happen, fire him. Everybody's going to feel great. It's going to boost office morale. Client will love you. I mean, it's as simple as that. And to be honest, I think that's a great career. Like, I would be a fall guy. If you ever wanted me, if you'd use me as a fall guy, I'd be happy to, pretend to work at your office and then you fire me. Because really, in reality, you really earn the respect of everyone. And that's the big key here is respect, right? Is that everyone in the office now will respect you because you got rid of, the incompetent employee. And I would do that for you. I don't know how much I would charge for that, but that could be a really good, business is just being able to hire actors who just come into your workplace, work there for a little bit, and then you just fire them in front of everybody. And it's great. Another things I guess you could do with that too is like hire someone, just to be like the office asshole and then unites everyone and then you fire them. That's another thing too, I guess you could do with this is instead of firing them for being like incompetent or taking all the blame for everything, you could just have them come in, be a dick, which, will unite everybody. Because I feel like that's what unites people nowadays, which is really sad, is hatred towards something versus love. Really messed up. But really, if you look at historically, I think the last time we were ever really united as a country was probably World War II against, Nazi Germany. And nowadays, I don't know what the hell could unite everybody. Everyone, I guess an alien invasion. But, with your fall guy, you bring him in, he's a dick to everybody, and then you fire him. Everybody loves you, and they're united. Because now they have stuff to talk about for the next, 3 to 4 years. Because there's nothing to talk about in the American office place, because the American office place is a very, very boring place. But I honestly believe, guys, with those 8 steps, that is how you survive workplace incompetence that just kills morale. Because that's the thing that sucks. Like when you work in an office, you're doing the same thing every day. You're coming in same time, same thing, same people, same stupid stories, which usually are just, talking about TV shows. It's terrible. And I did it. I don't know how I survived it, but I did it. I should write a book about it because really in reality, if you guys didn't know this, I worked at a bank. I won't say the name, but I worked at a bank in Chicago. And, they should have been probably hiring people from like Notre Dame that actually had like a degree in finance, but they hired me. And I had a bachelor's degree in acting and directing. I pretty much had to just go out and Google what the hell I was doing. It's kind of like that movie Catch Me If You Can, with Tom Hanks, where the guy pretends to be like an airline pilot. I pretty much did that from a financial standpoint. And it was so dumb because, I shouldn't have been there, but I was. And then when I left, I was like a manager of like 8 people, which is crazy because, I have a degree in acting, directing. I took tap dancing classes. While other people were taking economic and finance classes, I was learning how to horribly tap dance. But that's a tale for another time, if you'd ever like to hear that. And guys, that's our time today. So, if you work in an office place, and because of COVID, you might be working from home right now, but someday you might get back to it. Because I think some people are starting to dread on the working from home thing and want to get back around human beings. You might want to consider this process of a fall guy. And if you need a fall guy, give me a call. You can hire me. I'll play the fall guy. Obviously, you're going to have to pay me. But I'm going to tell you right now, guys, if you do it, I'm going to put on a great performance, and I'm going to boost office morale, make your clients love you. I guarantee that. You're going to like the way you look. I guarantee it. It's from Men's Warehouse. But that's our time. Thank you guys so much for listening. And remember, if you ever want to be a guest on the Nimble Urban Survivor, you can reach me at my website at www.catellicomedy.com. Guys, I know there's a lot of amazing podcasts out there that you could be listening to, so I really appreciate that you took the time to listen to mine. Again, it's December 8th, 2020. Things are crazy out there with COVID, but we're going to get through it. So I know you're going to have those moments where you're like, oh, this is never going to end. But remember, it's going to end. Because we've hit rock bottom. We can only go up. And that's where we're going to go, is we're going to go up. Because I believe in you. And we're going to fucking rock this. So have a good week. Have a good holiday season. Stay happy. COVID's going to be gone eventually. I don't know when. But it seems like maybe there's a sunset on the horizon. I love you guys. Stay safe out there.